Welcome back to the CNET Live stage. I'm Bridget Carey. Now, with the proliferation of social media and all the data mining that companies are doing on us, it would appear that at least privacy is dead. But here to discuss the state of consumer privacy is CNET's Dan Patterson and Cindy Cohen, the Executive Director of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Thank you for joining us today. So I wanted to kind of start our conversation today off on what your take is and the concerns are going into the new year with consumer privacy, because we were at a show where there's lots of great tech, and a lot of that tech involves more data collection to be able to do the new whiz-bang things.
Well, I think that a lot of the technology is kind of two-faced, right? On the one hand, it's offering you something, and on the other hand, it's doing things.
Oh, sorry, 1 second. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties to fix your mic. It's always part of the CES fun. It always ends up being something like, oh, you know. Now, Dan, you've been reporting a lot on privacy issues, so I know that it's even been in the news today with I know constantly everything going on at the show. It almost feels like privacy is like is something that we're all talking about while we're talking about the new fun gadgets.
One of the most interesting things, and I'd love Cindy's take when we have a chance to speak about this, but it's this dichotomy of choice that we're presented between privacy and security and convenience.
Yeah,
and
we got you a new mic, so great, we're good to go.
Happy. All right, I can be heard now. Wonderful. Yeah, I think that my biggest concern here is that a lot of this technology is what I call kind of two-faced, right? On the one hand, it is offering you a service, but on the other hand, it is collecting a lot of data, and you're not really clued in to what's going to happen with that data, nor are you clued into how it's going to be protected, both on your device, in your home, or when it leaves your home and goes somewhere else. And I think that it's tremendously important that consumers are starting to raise these questions. We're starting to see lawmakers and policymakers respond. And we're going to have to rebuild some of our technologies so that they're, again, not two-faced anymore, but really just one-faced and just serve us.
yeah, so Cindy, there was some breaking news this morning. Tony Brahm at the Washington Post reported that Facebook has reversed a previous policy, and they say that they will now ban deepfake content just ahead of the 2020 election. But their policy leaves a lot of wiggle room. For example, it wouldn't prohibit the viral video of Nancy Pelosi that was manipulated this past summer. So my question for you is, can Facebook or should Facebook do anything to stop the proliferation of disinformation and misinformation?
Well, I think that it's really hard. You know, one person's information is another person's disinformation, and a lot of people are pounding on the tech companies, rightfully so right now, but honestly they're pointing in very different directions. So, you know, what Facebook has announced today is that they're going to go a little further in trying to catch misleading fakes. But the line drawing here is really, really hard. There's so many things that happen. I mean, in the context of trying to take a piece of video and make it something that's presentable, you know, in a public way, people make modifications all the time, and we want them to, right? Whether that's closed captioning or, you know, maybe getting rid of a blemish on your face. So where does that line get drawn is really tough. Now, Facebook has articulated where they're going to try to draw the line now, and I think it wouldn't include the Nancy Pelosi augmented video because it was so obviously a fake. Nobody in their right mind thought that was real. I think and I think it's right for them to pay very close attention to the difference between things that people might want to do in order to make content more compelling and what is really aimed at misleading people. But it's not easy to figure out where that line is drawn. And it's also very susceptible to being manipulated for political purposes, right? Most people think that the things that they agree with are just fine and the things that they disagree with are manipulative. Facebook's not going to be better at figuring out the truth in these conundrums than the average American is. And so I worry about trying to put them into the position where they're the deciders of what's true.
Yeah, I'm feeling that way too. Like, who is drawing those lines? I mean, one of the things that was shown off today and a little bit last night was from Samsung, an artificial human, where it's a video chat bot essentially that is looking like a real person on video. And I think as consumers, like, there's hard to know, like, all right, well, what is fake and what is like meant to be not a real thing but act like a real thing, you know? So this is a very confusing time, I think, for consumers.
I think so too, and I think society is going to work it out. Honestly, people are getting more and more savvy about looking for those things. I mean, when Photoshop was first introduced, there was a lot of concern that Photoshop was going to result in people being misled and it was going to cause things. I mean, we were all alive when that happened, but maybe we've forgotten. I think that societies grow and they begin to get more and more savvy about the difference between something real and something that is manipulative, and we're going to have to continue to do that. I don't think, while I think it's okay for Facebook to take a slightly stronger position, I don't think we should just presume that Facebook is the decider of what's true and what's not. I think that's very, very dangerous.
I was going to say, talking more about stuff going on in the show, a lot of artificial intelligence is the talk in terms of like data collection. And I wanted to get a little bit of your take because we were hearing a lot about the future is being almost predictive in the technology, being able to not just use the data to be like, oh, it's raining outside, take an umbrella, but like looking at your facial expressions and saying, hey, you know what, you look a little stressed. Should I, activate XYZ protocol because maybe you need a nap right now? What are the things that are raising your eyebrows going into the new year?
Well, I think there's a lot of snake oil being sold right now as if you could predict things. I mean, artificial intelligence is an amazing technology. Neural networks are really cool, but they don't predict the future. They can only kind of predict the past, right? They're just looking for patterns in data about what's happening in the past and making a presumption that those patterns are going to continue in the future. And that's really dangerous if it's not used in ways that are very careful. If it's simply telling me I think it might rain, or if it's serving just me, and the downside to it being wrong is I don't have an umbrella when I need it, then fine, that's awesome. Or maybe it sends me in, it thinks I'm ready to buy shoes and I'm not ready to buy shoes. It's wrong, whatever. Like, I don't care about those things. Where I worry more is when these algorithms and when these predictive technologies are used to try to predict other people's behavior, and the downside of them being wrong doesn't fall on the person doing the predicting, but on that person. So I get very concerned about the use of these technologies in the context of whether a kid gets into a class or not, whether somebody on disability gets the benefits that they need, whether in the context of law enforcement and the criminal justice society, we're seeing a lot of those. Those are not really central here at the Consumer Electronics Show. But I think the framework that people need to take to this is, who is this decision-making serving? Who gets hurt if it's wrong? And how serious is the hurt if it's wrong? And if it's serving you, and the kind of harms that you're going to suffer if it's wrong are the ones you want to tolerate, then that's awesome. But that's not what we're seeing with a lot of these technologies. And frankly, we're seeing a lot of claims that you can, predict people's future behavior based on their past behavior, as if that's the only thing that might affect somebody's future behavior. And that's not true or right, or really kind of, I think, consistent with our humanity. I mean, we're not just pattern following robots and having pattern searching robots try to decide what we get to do and what we don't get to do kind of threatens something pretty important, I think, about people's ability to, act differently and change and grow.
As Bridget indicated, we are at a consumer electronics show where the themes seem to be data collection, data aggregation for your benefit. But if you elect not to use these devices, you're kind of shut out of this new ecosystem. So we're presented this choice where we have to compromise our personal data or be shut out. So is there a third way, a better way?
I think there are third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth ways, right?
Give me one.
Well, one is that the technology just serves us, right? So you might not have your business model based on advertising. You might want your business model based on selling you a disc. We see this in the phone market right now, right? Apple sells us a more expensive product, but they don't subsidize it with advertising in the way that Google subsidizes the Android phone. That's a model. DuckDuckGo, for instance, is a search engine that doesn't track you. It uses contextual ads, not targeted tracking ads over time. They make money. They're a business that makes money. There's plenty of opportunity here, and frankly, I think entrepreneurs ought to be looking for all the ways in which they can answer consumers' increasing interest in privacy. I mean, the video of the little girl in her bedroom being talked to by the Amazon Ring that got hacked into, I think woke a lot of people up and ought to wake a lot of people up. That ought to be viewed by most of us, by people at this show, as a market opportunity. How do I provide a system that lets people do this?
Oh, did we lose your mic?
Without.
Oh. All right, hang on. We're going to get you another mic in the meantime. What I'm curious about, too, is like, I want to know what exactly also the kind of devices you have when you're thinking about all this stuff. Because you're a consumer, too. You're buying all this stuff. Oh, yeah. Try to use that mic over there. Let's see. Let's turn it on. Is it working?
I don't.
There we go.
Yay. Well, the first thing I would say is that I think one of the problems that people are having as consumers right now is they are falling into the trap that their personal purchase choices are the only voice that they can have. And so they aren't able to help make better products come on the market because you either buy it or you don't, and that's your only thing. And as you pointed out, for many things, if you're not participating, you're going to lose out. And there are a lot of people who say, for instance, can't just leave Facebook, right? It's where their business is, it's where their community is, it's where their family is. So that's one way of saying that I really think there are policy fights, there are legal fights that are happening now. And if people want to see more privacy protective markets develop, they have to make sure that the policies and the laws that are in place will support those decisions. And so you're not just as a consumer in this market, you're actually as a voter and as an activist, as a person who can make their voice heard. Personally, I love tech. I mean, I work for the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We love technology, and we try to make choices for the technology that serves us. Rather than the technology. So I mentioned, we also don't endorse products, so I'm a little hesitant. But, I'm a big fan of technologies that are not engaging in the surveillance business model, that have picked another thing. I think that it's important to support those technologies and continue to develop them. I also think there's a lot of, in this showroom, at least that I've seen so far, there's a lot of people who are trying to develop security add-ons for home-based technologies, and they're a tremendously important market opportunity, right? If somebody's going to sell me...
Cindy, thank you so much.
I'm sorry,
getting told in my ear that we're running out of time. I want to talk all day. This is good stuff. This is important stuff. So thank you again, and I hope that people can go on to the EFF website to learn more advice and tips of what they can do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short break. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, Patrick Holland will show us a toothbrush that cleans your teeth in a flash. That's next.